Republicans, conservatives, the far right, fascists in general, hate LGBTQ people and hate free speech. A memorial to the 2016 nightclub shooting in Orlando has been paved over by the government of Ron DeSantis. 49 people died in the shooting, a terrible act of homophobia that intended to erase and kill LGBTQ people. The once rainbow-adorned crosswalk has now been covered with dull, grey tarmac, eliminating a major part of Orlando culture for far-right fascist goals. Naturally, people were quite reticent to accept this from the DeSantis government. People were unhappy with this decision. There's a lot of people in Orlando that are LGBTQ. People want to remember the victims of such a hateful attack and promptly recoloured in the crossing with the colours of a rainbow, a sign of support and solidarity with the LGBT community. It's quite a diverse city. And so in response, the government of DeSantis decided to put armed police on patrol at the crossing. They decided to arrest an individual who walked across and was accused of defacing public property, which has since been dropped, funnily enough. And the signalling from the government is that they're going to ramp up the policing of the area, the policing of the site of the memorial. And this is quite a blatant show of force from the DeSantis government to signal their intent to destroy and kill LGBTQ people. They not only endorse the killings of the initial 2016 incident, which were explicitly homophobic and anti-LGBTQ, but they want to erase these people from society on the whole. They want to essentially commit genocide against LGBTQ people. DeSantis is a bigot, and so are the GOP in general. And so as a result, you have efforts made over things which are deeply unpopular. The community in Orlando overwhelmingly want this memorial here. It's not like it's a debate. People in Orlando actively support the decision to memorialize and remember the people who died in that shooting. And when you go against people openly expressing this, the open expression of support for LGBTQ people, you are suppressing people's right to be able to voice themselves, their right to speech. Quite openly, quite brazenly, there's the public space this is happening in, and they are arresting people that they want to silence. There's no metaphorical element here, it's quite a brazen attack. They're literally paving over and banning the symbols of pride, of LGBTQ life. And if you look at the wider activities in Florida, it is a pretty dismal situation for LGBTQ people, who number in the millions, by the way. It wouldn't matter, it would be wrong even if it was only a few people, but it's a significant portion of Orlando, or Florida, of American life. And that's sort of the point. Despite the fact that LGBTQ people are a significant portion of society, far-right activists, far-right politicians, fascists, people like DeSantis, they can only interpret and imagine the world through a bigoted lens. They only imagine the world existing in a world that erases these people, erases LGBTQ people. This is a cornerstone of fascism. As well as attacking LGBTQ people and other marginalized groups, they target rights in general. Free speech is a constitutionally protected right in America. Most nations with any understanding and interpretation of human rights will have some element of free speech in their laws and regulations. And chalking the pavement is protected free speech. It is a public space. You are allowed to do that. So the idea that you can enforce something like this is absurd, but it's fascism. It's a show of their power. They want to control and have the authority to determine what is expressed and said in public. As LGBTQ people don't fit that paradigm, they are out. They don't get the rights that other people do. There's no way they would ever apply this logic to the numerous far-right protests which actively endanger people and actively cause death and violence to anywhere near the same degree. They had Nazis showing up at Disneyland in Florida. No one cared. No one said anything about their clear destruction to the norms and way of life. But they fit the profile of what the far right want. They don't mind that speech because they have the same views, they're the same people, right? Meanwhile, a harmless memorial, something that was not even of any obstruction to anyone, just some colours on the ground, gets paved over because apparently it's too offensive to the far right to see existence of LGBTQ people. It's a disgrace. It really, I think, points to the sheer shamelessness of all the people claiming that right-wing politics was going to help free speech come to the forefront. All the reactionary types on the internet and in media were politicians that made a big cause of this. All the claims of, the left, they're taking away free speech. It was all just rubbish. It was all wrong. The clear threat, as has been pointed out by many, many groups in society, specifically marginalised people that were targeted by the right and left-wing activists and left-wing just voices who said, Trump, Republicans, far right, these are the clear threat to preservation of our rights. They should have been listened to, because here we are now in 2025 and the fascist takeover of America is destroying civil rights, it's destroying human rights. If we don't actively defend LGBTQ rights, where are we going to be as a society? Letting them get away with this will be a domino that lets them take away other taken for granted rights. And so we've really got to pay attention to the attacks on LGBTQ people. We've got to ensure that there's no ability for them to build on this incident. And thankfully, in Orlando, they're doing a good job resisting this awful decision. The rainbows aren't going away anytime soon. LGBTQ people aren't going to go away anytime soon. I want to see, hopefully, more protests and civil disobedience and uncivil disobedience. We've got to maintain this anger against a far-right government. DeSantis should not know a day of peace for his continued attacks on living human beings. And we do that by defending every marginalised group in society, which means we've got to maintain the rainbow, if that makes sense. We've got to try and continue defying attacks on civil liberties and LGBTQ people. We can't tolerate the intolerant any longer, which has been done for far too long. American society has essentially forever had problems accepting the fact that gay people exist, accepting the fact that trans people exist, lesbians, bisexual, asexual, any group that is outside cis heteronormativity. It's staggering that the personal life of someone else is of such concern to just an old fossil like DeSantis. All these conservatives who have no interest or stake in these people's lives beyond their own little bigoted worldview. And ultimately, if it means they're going to be uncomfortable with some rainbows, too bad. That's life. That's their right under any civilized society. Free speech. That's what it is. Gay people existing and being able to say, yes, I am gay, I am proud to be gay, I do not have to put up with bigotry. That's their right to be able to say. So for them to be acting in this way and claiming that it's a disruption of public life is a sham, it's a lie. And we've got to make sure that it doesn't continue, because as we saw in Nazi Germany, attacks on LGBTQ people and assaults on their rights and erasure of their existence is a precursor to the horrors of fascism.